So, welcome everyone to our course overview of Gita. We are doing our 62nd class today. This is based on chapter 18, titled as The Perfection of Renunciation. Today is our third class for this chapter, and let us start by offering our Mangalacharan pranams. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamarupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurau Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guruna Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So let us begin the session with the overview chart of chapter 18. We have already covered the first three sections, as you can see on this chart: the section on Karma Yoga, the section on five factors of action, and the section on the three modes controlling all the activities and beings. So I will revise the third section in a short while, but just to update briefly, cover the first two sections. In the Karma Yoga section, we briefly discussed the same theme that has been discussed in first five chapters of the Gita, where the Lord urges Arjuna not to renounce action, but rather act in a renounced spirit. So that was the main message Lord Krishna was giving to Arjuna in the Karma Yoga sections of the Bhagavad Gita. And the same theme was repeated slightly in a different way in the 18th chapter, in the beginning of 18th chapter, where Arjuna starts this section by asking a question about what is sannyas and what is tyag. So after describing the Karma Yoga to Arjuna, the Lord then tells Arjuna that a Karma Yogi acts uh, in a spirit of renunciation because he has the understanding of the five factors of action. And these five factors of actions are Adhishthan, Karana, Karma, uh, Daiva, and Cheshta. So, five factors of action he describes to Arjuna. Uh, and we discussed about these things. Ultimately, this means that the soul is not the only doer. Apart from the soul, there are multiple other factors which are engaged when any action is performed. And the other four actions are, other four factors are uh, the other than the soul is the cheshta, is the adhishthanam, is the daiva, and the karma. So all these other four factors are there. So uh, ultimately, these four factors, this knowledge of these four factors, or total five factors, should tell the soul or should tell the karma yogi that ultimate sanctioner is the super soul, the Parmeshwar, the Paramatma. So without the sanction of the Paramatma, uh, nothing can happen. So that is the main message of section 2 of this chapter. And uh, uh, now the importance of this particular section is that why a karma yogi is able to act in a detached way. A karma yogi is able to act in a detached way because he understands that ultimately Paramatma is the sanctioner. So which uh, makes him feel that I'm not the only doer, and I'm actually, he feels sheltered and he feels grateful to the Supreme Lord. So that is the main purpose of this knowledge of five factors of action. So let us revise the section number 3 in the class today. I have made a slide on that. Yeah. Yeah, so the knowledge of five factors prevents the Karma Yogi to get bound because he feels sheltered towards the Supreme Lord, and hence he doesn't get bound. Because that was one of the main concerns of Arjuna, that I will get bound if I kill my relative. So Lord is trying to clarify Arjuna on that part. And then after describing that you will not get bound if you understand these five factors, now the Lord starts to explain to Arjuna about that the work is covered with three modes of material nature. Any work that you do is covered with three modes. And in order to explain that concept, that every living entity and every activity in this world is covered by three modes of material nature, Lord Krishna does some analysis on what is action, and what are the motivations for action, and what are the constituents of an action. So among the motivations of action, he explains that it is Jnanam, Gyayam, and Parigyata. And as far as the constituents of action, he explains that it is Karma, it is Karta, and Karma, Karta, and then the third one is Karma, Karta. Just give me a minute. And Jnana. So based on that, he karma, karta, and karanam. Sorry, karma, karta, and karanam. So these are the three constituents of action, and then he continues to explain that all these constituents of action. He then summarizes these constituents of action. These are six constituents of action, and these reduces. He further on goes on to reduce these six items into three items, and that we discussed in the previous class. And he reduces these three items to Jnanam, Karta, and Karma. And then he explains that all these three, Jnanam, Karta, and Karma, are affected by three modes of nature. And that's how he starts to explain. And overall, uh, first of all, he says that knowledge, which is Jnana, action is karma, and performer is karta. So first of all, he explains that how these three are in three modes of nature. So he starts to give this explanation about the knowledge in three modes of nature. He explains that knowledge about soul, that one who understands that soul is same in every body, that person's knowledge is in mode of goodness. The person who understands that there are different souls, there are different living forces in different bodies, that person is in mode of passion. And one who understands, or one whose understanding is only limited to the bodily level, only earning money and only taking care of the body, that knowledge is in the mode of ignorance. And then further on, he explains what is action in three modes. He says that those actions which are in goodness are actually regulated, that are detached. Those actions which are in passion, they are driven by selfish desires. And those actions which are in ignorance, they are mainly destructive and harmful to others. Further on, he explains performer in the three modes, which is the karta in the three modes. He mentions that the performer in goodness, or karta in goodness, is a person who is determined, who is enthusiastic. Performer in the mode of passion is greedy, he is envious, he is impure. The performer in mode of ignorance, they have cheating propensity, they are lazy, they are morose, they have procrastinating tendencies. And then further on, he starts to explain about uh, intelligence in three modes and determination in three modes. He uh, so we at this point we discussed that how intelligence is different from knowledge. We discussed that knowledge is at the level of theory and intelligence is at the level of practical, where one has to choose between right and wrong. So there we use intelligence, but knowledge is something which is at a theoretical level. Maybe we acquire some information, and that is something we call it at a level of knowledge. So intelligence in three modes, the Lord explains that uh, what is to be done and what is not to be done. That understanding, when it is clear, that is intelligence in the mode of goodness. In the mode of passion, the person is not able to understand what is religious, what is irreligious, what is right or what is wrong. He doesn't have a very clear understanding. There is a blurred understanding. And in mode of ignorance, the person considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion. So the situation is really bad in the situation where the person is in mode of ignorance. Then we also discussed about determination in three modes, dhriti in three modes. So person whose determination is in mode of goodness, his determination is unbreakable. It is sustained by yoga. Control of mind is there because the person is more engaged in yoga practices. So the control of mind is there. But determination in mode of passion is about dreaming, about desire of fruitive activities and so on. And similarly, the determination in mode of ignorance is about dreaming. So this kind of person doesn't have only have determination at the level of dreams. He keeps on dreaming that I will do this thing in future, I will do that thing in future, but it never materializes. Then we discussed that happiness in three modes. Why we discussed happiness in three modes? Because all these other five elements like knowledge, action, performer, intelligence, and determination, ultimately the purpose of all these elements is to make the living entity happy. That is the ultimate purpose. So knowledge is acquired because we want to become happy. Any action is performed because we want to become happy. uh, Performance, intelligence, determination, everything is there only because we want to become happy ultimately. So Lord finally concludes that actually happiness is also, we can see, is in three modes. And there we discussed that how happiness in mode of goodness, it is poison in the beginning, but it is nectar in the end, and it is arising out of abhyas. Abhyas means practice. So it is not available very soon. It is, for that you have to work hard, or you have to do some sacrifice. And that's how this happiness comes. Happiness in mode of goodness, it may appear painful in the beginning, but the end result is always very nice. Similarly, uh, the happiness in mode of passion, it is nectar in the beginning, but it is poison in the end. So all the activities which are related to sense gratification, for gratifying the senses, these activities may appear very nice, charming, uh, but in the end the result is poison. The end result is poison. And happiness in mode of ignorance, we discussed, it is poison in the beginning and it is poison in the end. So that's how we kind of discussed. Now once again, let me remind that so far we have discussed in this particular section, what the Lord is trying to say is that all the actions, all the activity that we do, they are not spared by these three modes of material nature. And he has categorically done the analysis. He has broken the section of action into motivation of action, then the constituents of action. Then he started to discuss about uh, three items from this motivation and the constitution part. Three items, which is knowledge, action, and performer. And then he continues to build upon the same theme, which is intelligence, determination, and happiness in three modes. Bottom line is, he's trying to say that no one either on earth or heavens is free from the three modes. So now we can see there are two. Uh, okay, let us move to the next section where I can relate to how it is connected to the next section. So in this section we are going to study about purification through prescribed duties of varnashrama, and let me now explain you the flow so far, the flow in this chapter so far, because there are so many details till verse number 40 that we may lose our sight on the big picture. So this particular slide is specifically to give you an understanding of what is the big picture in this particular chapter so far. So from verse number 1 till verse number 12, as we discussed just now, that Lord Krishna's main message is that work with detachment or work with a detached spirit. And if you work like this, if you fight like this, it will not cause any bondage to you. Then from 13th to 17th, he gives knowledge about the five causes of work, and that leads to detachment because the practitioner feels sheltered towards the Lord, he feels dutiful, he feels selfless, and this activity or this kind of understanding uh, also brings no bondage. So you can see in the first two sections from verse number 1 till verse number 17, the thrust of the verses is that if we work in the detached spirit, if we work in a renounced spirit, we are not supposed to get any bondage. So the thrust of the section is renouncement in spirit. But the subsequent section, which is starting from verse number 18 till 40, the thrust of the verses is that in this world nothing is spared from three modes of material nature. Even if you are looking at action, and the Lord has given a detailed analysis of how you can divide various items of action, and he has given a detailed explanation that each of these items are either in mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. And and we have studied in the previous chapters of Bhagavad Gita the modes, either in goodness or passion or ignorance, they bind the living entity into this material world. Hmm. They have a bonding effect. So in the first two sections, the idea is to get away from bondage, and get away from bondage by acting in detachment. And the idea in the third section is that there are modes of material nature always constantly acting on you, and that are going to bound you, that are going to bound you. So there are two contrasting themes. The first theme, where the Lord is advising us to be detached, and in the second theme, the Lord is saying that there are forces which will make you attached. Uh, so that is the fourth item in the slide here. So 1, 2, 3, and the fourth item is here, where the Lord is saying we are supposed to be detached, but we are influenced by the modes which make us attached. The mode of passion has its own way of attaching us, the mode of goodness has its own way of attaching us, the mode of passion has its own way of attaching us. Now there is a recommendation that we should become detached, and there is a problem that we become attached because we are under the influence of modes. Now what is the solution? The solution comes in the subsequent section, which is starting from verse number 41, and it continues till verse number 48. Here the solution is, the Lord is telling us that we act according to our nature and worship the Lord by our work. So since we cannot leave our nature, which is given to us by birth, by the arrangement of the material nature, we cannot leave that nature. So the Lord is saying that we better act according to our nature, and whatever work we do according to our nature, we offer that work as worship to the Lord. So this is the theme that will go on from verse number 41 till verse number 48. And in order to implement this solution, the Lord has arranged a socio-cultural system known as Varnashram. Varnashram, four Varnas and four Ashramas. So the Lord has arranged this socio-cultural system of Varnashrama, and if people act according to the varnashram system, and then according to that system they work according to their nature and offer their work to the Supreme Lord, then the Lord says that such work will not cause bondage and will ultimately lead you towards transcendence, will lead you towards your spiritual goal. So that is the main theme that will go on from verse number 41 till verse number 48. Let us see these verses one by one. So today we are going to do only 8 verses, starting from 41 and ending till 48th verse. So the Lord in the 41st verse is giving an introduction. He's saying, Brahmana Kshatriya Visham Shudradam cha Parantapa Karmani Pravibhaktani Swabhava Prabhavairgunai. Saying, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by the qualities born of their own natures in accordance with the material modes, O chastiser of the enemy. So Brahmana, Kshatriya, Visham, Shudranam cha Parantapa, Karmani Pravibhaktani. Karmani is activity, Pravibhaktani, the division of activities. Pravibhaktani, Swabhava Prabhavair Gunai. And the division of these activities, the vibhakta or the division, the pravibhaktani means division, is according to swabhava. Swabhava means nature, according to the material modes. So Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So as you can see here, I have identified these four varnas. I've listed these four varnas on the slide here, and below these four varnas I have also mentioned about what is the predominant mode of material nature that particular varna is having. So Brahmanas are generally in the sattva, which is mode of goodness. So predominantly Brahmanas are sattvic people, huh? Then Kshatriyas. Kshatriya, the predominant mode is rajasic, but the secondary mode is sattvic. So they have predominance of rajas, and then sattva is there, and then maybe some ignorance is there. Vaishyas, primarily it is rajas, rajogun, and then secondary mode is tamogun. For Shudras, it is other way around. The primary mode is tamas, and the secondary mode is rajogun. So that's what the main introduction of the verse, where the Lord is saying that there are four varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and their activities are divided according to the nature they acquire from the material modes. So this slide tells you what are those four varnas and what are the predominant modes of material nature for each of the varna. Let us move to the second slide. Here I have given a little comparison of each of these varnas to the human body. And why I have done this, why I'm sharing this division to you, it will be clear in the next slide. It is mainly to emphasize the fact that this system of varnas and the system of ashramas is a very, very scientific system. It is a scientific system in the sense that uh, when the society is divided according to these four human types, and the activities of the societies are uh, given in accordance to their nature and their human types, in that situation the person also feels very comfortable doing that activity, and the society feels, and since the person feels comfortable doing those activities, the stability and the peacefulness, there is stability and peacefulness in the society. And it also helps society cooperate with each other uh, in a very seamless manner, and in order to emphasize that seamless manner part, I have shown this example how brahmanas are known to be as the head, which are mainly in the activity of uh, guiding the society, reading spiritually. They are very well versed about the scriptures, and they tell the society what is good, what is bad for them. So these are compared to the head of the body. Similarly, Kshatriyas, they are mainly the protection given entity or the part of the society. So they are compared to the arms of the body, human body. Vaishyas, their primary role is mainly business. Their primary role is mainly krishi, which is agricultural activity, producing grains and so on. So they have been compared to as the stomach of the human body. And Shudras are mainly to support or to serve the other three varnas, and they are compared to the legs of the body. Now, a body, when it functions, uh, all unless all the limbs of the body function in cooperation with each other, the body cannot remain healthy. For example, if a person is hungry, the person has to eat food with the head, with the help of the hands, or maybe cook the food with the help of the hands. And the person may have to collect the food grains or food material by going to the market. That happens with the legs. The person may have to conceptualize something which they have to cook, they have to plan things with the help of the head. So unless and until uh, all the three other aspects of these body cooperate with each other, the food cannot be cooked and the food cannot be taken to the stomach. And unless food is taken to the stomach, the energy cannot come to the head, the energy cannot come to the arms, the energy cannot come to the legs. So the point is, these four varnas are actually four type of humans, and these four type of humans have been decided based on the nature they acquire by birth, by their past karma, and so on. They acquire certain nature, and if the activities or their karma or their profession is decided based on their inclination, based on their nature, then it becomes very very easy and very comfortable for all these people to perform these activities, like we call job satisfaction. In today's parlance, we call job satisfaction. So a person who is fond of photography, if he is put in a role which is something like a clerical in nature or sitting a desk work from morning till evening, he will feel bored. Similarly, a person who is more for a clerical work, if he's told to go outside, collect money and do business and whatever, he may also not feel comfortable. So this is the main message here, that uh, these four divisions are according to the nature, and once this division is there and the society acts on this division, everything works in a seamless manner, in a cooperation with each other. So what is the uh, main advantage here, or the idea here is, when all the limbs of the body work together, the body remains healthy. Similarly, if there are four human types and these four human types are given work and activity according to their nature, the society remains healthy, the society remains stable. So that is what this particular slide is trying to tell here, that this varnashram arranges for, first thing is the material cooperation. Material cooperation means that the brahmanas have their activities, the kshatriyas have their activities, and so on. And uh, when there is a material cooperation among the various sections of the society, and each section of the society feels comfortable because they are working according to their nature, then they feel satisfied, they feel happy, they feel peaceful. And in that particular state of mind, they can think of spiritual advancement. Unless and until people are comfortable, unless and until people are mentally satisfied, internally, mentally, physically, they feel satisfied by doing their activities, uh, they cannot think of a spiritual advancement. So this varnashram system, which has been made by the Lord, it's a socio-cultural system which sets the platform for spiritual advancement of the individual living entities in the society. And at the same time, uh, because this division is exclusive, like brahmanas have their role, kshatriyas have their role, so there is a sense of cooperation among all these individual sections of the society. And when there is a division of labor which is like this, the society remains stable, the society remains peaceful, and it progresses well. So this is the whole idea of the varnashram system. It is not to say that the varnashram system is some spiritual arrangement. It is not purely spiritual. It is at a material level, but the arrangement is such that it facilitates spiritual development. It facilitates spiritual development because unless and until a system makes the person comfortable at a bodily level, at the mental level, it cannot think of spiritual advancement in the future. So that is what this varnashram system is there. So it starts the it starts the or it sets the stage for spiritual development. So that is the introduction about varnashram. That is the explanation about how the varnashram is relevant and for spiritual development. And from verse number 42 till 44, Lord Krishna now gives a specific uh, characteristics of each of these varnas. Say how the brahmanas are supposed to act, how are kshatriyas supposed to act, how are vaishyas supposed to act, and how are shudras supposed to act. So let us take each of these qualities briefly and one by one. In text number 42, Lord Krishna says, शमोदमस्तपः शौचं शान्तिरार्जवमेव च ज्ञानं विज्ञानमास्तिक्यं ब्रह्म कर्म स्वभावजम्. So there are number of qualities. There are total of 9 qualities that Lord Krishna has described here about the Brahmanas. So here it is being said the Brahmanas are peaceful. Shamo means peacefulness. So Brahmanas are generally peaceful by nature. Peaceful means uh, they are more inclined towards developing knowledge. They are more inclined towards imparting knowledge, giving knowledge, and so on. And in general, they don't have a lot of passion inside them, and they are such people who can actually sit at one place, do their studies, do their education, and so on. So that is why one of the qualities is mentioned for Brahmana is peacefulness. The second quality is self control. So the Brahmanas are supposed to have good control of their senses, and uh, that is coming mainly because they are sattvic in nature, because the mode of goodness is predominating in the nature of Brahmanas, and that is where they are. It is easy for them to control their senses compared to maybe the other varnas. So, and that is mainly because of the presence of more sattva gun in the Brahmanas. So they are more self control. Similarly, austerity. Austerity would mean uh, maybe doing fasting on days. So they can do these kind of austerities like keeping fasting and so on. Uh, so because and that is again mainly because of the sattvic swabhav, sattvic nature they have. Similarly, cleanliness. They like cleanliness around them. They prefer external cleanliness. They also like appreciate the internal cleanliness, which is mainly by chanting of various mantras, doing various Vedic rituals, and so on. So that is the another quality of the Brahmanas, cleanliness. Similarly, tolerance. So uh, Brahmanas are supposed to be forgiving. It is mentioned here as Shantir. Shantir means tolerance. So Brahmanas are supposed to be forgiving. They are not supposed to engage in verbal fights or maybe physical fights and so on. So they by nature they are peaceful. They are tolerating. They are forgiving. As you would remember, we have done this class on Vishwamitra Muni, who was in his earlier avatar was Kaushik, uh, as a king Kaushik, and when he went to Vashishta Muni ashram, and there's a dispute between Vashishta Muni and Vishwamitra ji. So over the cow, over the possession of the cow, then Vashishta Muni doesn't retaliate when Vishwamitra and his soldier are pulling the cow to take with them. Vashisht Muni doesn't retaliate in between in the beginning. So that is telling that the Brahmanas are supposed to be tolerating in nature, forgiving in nature. Then honesty, which is Arjavam, simplicity in the dealings, truthfulness, which is honesty, and then knowledge. They are more inclined towards gaining knowledge, studying, educating others, reading scriptures. Uh, so it is said that uh, among these four varnas, Brahmanas are supposed to be dealing with ideas, Kshatriyas are more supposed to be dealing with people, Vaishyas are more supposed to be dealing with animals, and Shudras are more supposed to be dealing with things. So, as I said, so these people who are more intellectually oriented, they are more intellectually gifted, so they are more comfortable dealing with ideas. If you put somebody, a Brahmanical person, in a job where it is more to deal with people or administrate, they may not feel very comfortable because of the nature. But if you make these Brahmanical people to deal with something knowledgeable, maybe writing articles, teaching classes, and so on, they might feel very encouraged, very excited, and so on. So knowledge is another part. So Jnanam, Vijnanam, Astikyam. So Jnanam is knowledge. Vijnanam means wisdom. Wisdom means realized knowledge. So when the knowledge goes deeper into our intellect, it becomes wisdom. Wisdom means it becomes more, I would say, practical in application. So knowledge means at a theoretical level, wisdom means at a more of a practical level. And then Astikyam means faith in the scriptures. Here I have written as religiousness. So religiousness would mean that following the rules and regulations of the scriptures. So these the Brahmanical people, they like to follow rules. They like to go as per the law. They like to follow uh, the instructions given in the scripture. So these are the characteristics of the Brahmanas as described here in verse number 42. So similarly, let us look at the various characteristics of Kshatriya. Kshatriya characteristics are defined here as शौर्यं तेजो धृतिर्दाक्ष्यं युद्धे चाप्य पलायनं दानमीश्वर भावश्च क्षात्रं कर्म स्वभावजम्. So first quality mentioned here is shauryam. Shauryam means heroism. Heroism means that these people, Kshatriya people, as the word Kshatriya means, shat trayate. So protecting people from any harm. Shat means harm, trayate means protection. So protecting people from any harm is the main job, or is the main activity of the Kshatriya. So heroism means in order to protect people, sometimes the Kshatriya may have to risk their lives also. So they should be courageous people. It should not be that if a person, uh, for example, uh, in if a person takes a job in a police, so unless and until he has this Kshatriya mindset or the Kshatriya characteristic, and if he has to ask that, "Oh, okay, you have to go to such and such place and do some encounter of some terrorist or maybe some gangster," and he feels kind of say cowardness, or maybe doesn't want to kill somebody just because killing is not good and so on, that is not something which is a Kshatriya swabhav. Kshatriya swabhav, actually they feel excited, they feel really challenged, and they feel really adventure. They like adventure. They feel really motivated if these kind of jobs are there with them. There is some uncertainty, there is risk involved, there is adventure involved. So they shaurya, and that risk, adventure, they actually requires courage. Shaurya. Then tejo means power. Now, if the Kshatriya in the olden times, they have when they have to go to the battlefield, they have to hold these bow and arrows, or they have to hold these various uh, heavy weapons. They have to fight, maybe sometimes in the physical fight. They have to do all kind of very various kind of activities which require physical fitness, which require physically to be strong. So that is something which is tejo, which is means power, which means physical strength. That is something. Power can also means because they are administrators. They like to rule over, they like to administrate, they like power. They like this fact that so many people are working under my guidance, so many people are working under my direction. It is not out of pride or arrogance, but they like to uh, guide people, they like to get things done through people, and like that. So that is why that is mean as tejo. Then dhriti means determination. Now all these jobs, they, because they are in the role of administrators, they are in the role of, for example, military or police or whatever. And dhriti means determination. So these roles, getting things done in this world is not easy. You have to chase people, you have to motivate people, you have to sometimes uh, talk tactfully to the people, you have to really push hard people. And similarly, uh, in order to protect people, you sometimes have to face a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. So the kshatriyas should be having strong determination to sustain that kind of a pressure, that kind of a stress. So they should have dhriti, they should have determination. Then dakshyam means resourcefulness. Now, if a Kshatriya has to arrange for a war, he needs to have soldiers, he needs to have arms and ammunition, he needs to have money. So they should be resourceful. That is what actually Daksha means. Then Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam. Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam means courage in battle. So up Palayanam means they should not turn away their back when they are in fight. When they are in fight, they should take the challenge and actually do the necessary to meet the challenge. It is, even if they have to give their life, they should not feel cowardly, they should not feel afraid of even giving, lay down their life in some situation like this. So yuddhe chapya apalayanam. Now that is also, if you can see, an indirect reference to Arjuna here in the Gita. It is an indirect reference to Arjuna, because Arjuna was thinking of palayanam, uh, going out. So Lord is trying to give that you are a Kshatriya, so it is not befitting of you that you should palayan from this battle. Then danam. Danam Ishvara Bhavam. Dana means generosity. So we have already discussed this quality of Danam in our previous classes. But in the previous classes, we discussed Danam mainly from the Varnashram perspective for the Grihasthas. For the Grihasthashram people, that Danam is important. And why we discussed it there? Mainly because the Grihasthas are more attached towards resources, towards their property, towards their family, because no other three ashrams have these kind of things. So we said that okay, danam is more important for grahastha, because that encourages a sense of detachment in the mind of the grahastha. But here danam for the kshatriya has been mentioned in a different way. So generosity would mean that kshatriyas would collect taxes. They are government people, they are administrators, they would collect taxes. And when they would collect taxes, they should be generous enough to give it to those departments or those sections of the society which needs development. So that is what it means, danam, generosity in the context of kshatriya. It should not be that, oh, I have collected so much taxes, then I will sit on these taxes, I will not do anything, I will just keep on piling taxes. No, they should be generous enough to release those wealth for the betterment of the society. And then ishwaram bhavascha. Ishwaram bhava means controllership. So controllership mentality sometimes is seen as in a negative context, but here it is not in the negative context, it is mainly in terms of, so whenever there is a society, there will be activities. And whenever there are activities, there has to be somebody who should oversee all those activities. If you leave these activities to normal people, it will not work out. So somebody has to take that role of managing, delegating, keeping track of all these activities. So that is where Ishwaram Bhavascha, it is leadership. Take ownership of the activity, but it is not in the sense that they have to take this ownership or they have to take this leadership to exploit people. No, not in that sense. A Kshatriya is supposed to do that leadership role in order to benefit people, in order to coordinate among various people, and so on. So that is what Shatram Karma Swabhavajam. So this is the Swabhava of a Kshatriya, where the main mode of nature is Rajas, but there is sattva also involved here. So these are the various activities of a kshatriya. Now let us look at the various activities of a vaishya. कृषि गोरक्ष वाणिज्यम वैश्य कर्म स्वभावजम परिचर्यात्मकं कर्म शूद्रस्यापि स्वभावजम. So in the first line of this verse, first two lines of this verse, it is the qualities, characteristics of the Vaishya have been described, and in the second line, the characteristics of a Shudra has been described. So for the Vaishya, the main activities have been mentioned as Krishi, Goraksha, and Vanijya. Vanijya means business. Business could mean trading, business could mean banking, giving loan, earning by means of interest. Farming means generating those resources in the society which are mainly needed for the consumption of the society for day to day living. Now in this context, krishi, because in the past it was mainly the agricultural based society where the produce will be there, the grains will be there, fruits, vegetables, all these things will be there. uh, so that is mainly to manage all that commodities. But in today's reference, you can also extend this to say things which are consumer in nature for the maintenance of the society. So that is mainly business people, people who are money minded. So vaishyas are generally money minded. So uh, they like to do those activities which can produce some profit, which can produce some money. So that is not producing money is not necessarily bad. It is something which here, because the vaishyas are generally rajasic and say tamasic in swabhava. Tamasic is in the secondary mode. They like to generate money. They like this concept that okay, I have this much money today, I'll do more business and generate more money. And then the shudras is mainly to uh, paricharyatmakam karma. Paricharyatmakam means serving the other three varnas. Now these people, they don't have any inclination towards intellectual things, neither they have the capability to administrate, to fight, and do all kind of those kind of things. Neither they have acumen for business, acumen for commerce, trade, and so on. So these are generally people who are in the mode of tamas, in the mode of ignorance predominantly, but there is some mode of rajas is also involved. So for these people, it is best that they serve the other three varnas. So they are mainly indulged or engaged in labor oriented activities where there is nothing much to think about, there is nothing much to administrate, there is nothing much to think in terms of money production and so on. So that is where the shudras are involved. Now you can see that all these four types of uh, humans are present in the society even today. So it is not that a person who is born as a Brahmana is supposed to be known as Brahmana. The Lord is clearly mentioning here in verse number 41, this the karmani prabhibhaktani is according to swabhava, prabhavair gunai, swabhava. So if a person born to a Brahman father but doesn't have that tendency of a Brahmana, or may have a tendency of a Vaishya or a Kshatriya or a Shudra, is not supposed to work as a Brahmana. Is supposed to work as a maybe whatever the Swabhava is. So that is the main idea here. The reason I'm telling this is because in the society, in the Indian society, where the Vedic culture has been there from long time, uh, the degradation of Vedic culture, with the degradation of the Vedic culture, this Varnashram system, which was supposed to be based on Swabhava, because it started to degrade, it started to become Asuri. Asuri means it started to become demoniac, where the certain sections of the society, for example, the Brahmanical section of the society, became very much self-righteous. Uh, uh, they were thinking mainly about their own benefit and so on. And then the Kshatriya class also started to lose respect towards these Brahmanas. And then slowly and gradually the whole the varnashram system actually became very asuri. Now in the asuri varnashram system, the tendency is more towards considering somebody as brahmana or a vaishya or a shudra based on birth, based on the birth. So if a person is born to a brahmana, although he may be a degraded person in terms of his nature, his swabhava, however the society accepts him as a brahmana, and likes such brahmanas are expecting similar honor like that of a brahmana from the other sections of the society. So it did not work like that, and that is why the whole Vedic varnashram system started to collapse. And what you see today as caste system is a remnant of the degraded aspect of the varnashram system. However, the scriptures does not say that it has to be by birth, but it has to be swabhava. So that is something which we should understand. Okay, now let us move to the next section. So, so far the Lord has introduced the Varna system. The Lord has given the characteristics of the four Varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And now in 45th verse and in the 46th verse, Lord is taking the discussion to the next level. Lord now is saying, स्वे स्वे कर्मण्यभिरतः संसिद्धिं लभते नराः स्वकर्म निरतः सिद्धिं यथा विन्दति तच्छृणु. What the Lord is saying, स्वे स्वे कर्मण्यभिरतः. Swe swe means by their own respective activities. By their own respective activities. Swe swe karmanya abhiratah. Abhiratah means following, by getting engaged. By getting engaged in their own respective activities, swe swe karmanya abhiratah, samsiddhim labhate naraha. By engaging in your own activities born out of your nature, you can achieve samsiddhim. Labhate means achieving, samsiddhim means perfection. Naraha. Naraha means every man. Every man can achieve perfection by following his qualities of work. Swe swe karmanya abhiratah samsiddhim labhate naraha. And then swakarma niratah siddhim yatha vindati tachrunu. Now how this can be done? How? By getting engaged in their own duties, swakarma niratah. How that perfection will come? Swakarma niratah siddhim yatha vindati tachrunu. How that perfection will come? Oh my dear Bharata, oh my dear Arjuna, now I am going to tell you that. So this is something like the Lord is emphasizing that when we get engaged in our own in those activities which are born out of our nature, we can achieve perfection. Now this is something which does not mean that simply if we do any activity simply because our nature asks us to do that, that is certainly one criteria. But the second criteria is also that activity has to be performed within certain dharmic framework, within certain scriptural rules and regulations. So that activity has to be out of the nature, and when that activity is done according to that niyat karma which is prescribed in the scriptures, that kind of activity can lead you to perfection, can lead you towards transcendence. And that's what the Lord is giving an introduction. How that can happen, just hear from me, and that he explains here in the verse number 46. In verse number 46, Lord Krishna says, Yataha pravrattirbhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tabam tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. So he's saying, Yataha pravrattir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam. Hmm. Yataha pravrattir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam. Now here in the first line, the Lord is saying, uh, Yataha pravrattir bhutanam. So the bhutanam means all the living entities. pravrattir. Pravrattir means the swabhava or the nature. Yena sarvamidam tatam. That these activities come from that Supreme Lord, and those activities swakarmana tamabhyarcha. And when the person engages those activities which are obtained by the living entity, by the Supreme Lord, which is sarvamidam, yatah pravrattir bhutanam yen sarvamidam tatam. So the first line of this verse is actually addressing towards the Supreme Lord. So it is saying that these activities which the living entity have, and which makes the nature of that living activities, which from where from these activities are coming, where from this nature is coming, this nature is coming from the Supreme Lord. So yata pravrattir bhutanam yen sarvamidam tatam, and swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Now to that Supreme Lord, when these activities, these swakarmana, these activities born out of their nature, when these activities are offered to that Supreme Lord, swakarmana tam abhyarcha, then siddhim vindati manava. Now I will, that was a little complicated to explain you through the word meaning. So I will read you the translation. The translation says, by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. Hmm. So there is a specific reference of the Supreme Lord, and the reference of the Supreme Lord has been given here in a very specific way. And what is that specific way? It is mentioned that which Supreme Lord? That Supreme Lord which is the source of all beings and who is all pervading. Now, the reason why this particular reference is given is, the Lord is trying to tell to Arjuna is that since the Supreme Lord is the source of all beings, actually all this swabhava is also coming in these living entities by the mercy of the Supreme Lord only. And when this swabhava is coming by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, then what is expected from this living entity? What is expected from this living entity is that the living entity, when he does this activity, because of the swabhava he gets, he actually offer these, the result of these activities, or offer these activities, offer this work in their mind back to that Supreme Lord only. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Now this is something you can understand in the Bhagavad Gita, uh, a verse which is closely connected with this, closely, I would say, uh, 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 related to this particular aspect of Bhagavad Gita, which is quite popular in the society today, is which says work is worship. But here the idea is not to tell that work is worship, but the Lord is trying to say that by your work, worship the Lord. So there is a difference between work is worship and by your work, worship the Lord. So there is a fundamental difference between the two. Now, work is worship means that the person who goes to the office, or or a housewife who works in the kitchen, they think that their work that they are doing is the only worship they are doing. There is nothing to do, there is no connection with the Lord. The work they are doing simply, that is the only thing that they are supposed to do in this world, and that is something which is actually equivalent to worship. So that is what is the idea communicated when we say work is worship. However, when we say by your work worship him, by your work worship the Supreme Lord, here the idea is that since we get our talent, since we get our swabhava, our particular nature, by which we do various activities in this world, we get all these talents, we all get these gifts from the Supreme Lord. In so, and hence we should work in a way that is supposed to be as an offering to the Supreme Lord. That is the idea, where mainly when the person works, when the person performs some activity, he has this feeling of gratefulness towards the Lord. So that is the idea of swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Now, swakarmana tam abhyarcha is not as work is worship, but this is something which is the Gita's version of work is worship. That is not the society's version of work is worship. So we need to understand the difference between the two. So swakarmana tam abhyarcha means uh, have some gratitude towards the Lord, that oh Lord, because of you I am getting these qualities, I am getting these characteristics, I am getting this talent, and since because of this talent, because of using this talent, I am able to do a brahmanical duty, or I am able to do a kshatriya duty, or I am able to do a vaishya duty. Uh, I would like to rather mentally offer this work to you, oh my dear Lord, as a gratitude, as a feeling of gratitude. So that is the meaning of this swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Now let us look whatever just I have mentioned in the various purport, in the various bullet points that the purports have been given by Srila Prabhupada. Now, the first bullet point that you see in this slide is actually coming from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on Bhagavad Gita, where Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions the same thing which I have just shortly before mentioned to you. He's saying this worship consists of offering the work in the mind, thinking, by this work may the Lord be satisfied. Huh? Now, let us little bit reflect upon this point, and try to make you realize how this thing can happen. Many times we see in life that we become something in our life. Maybe we become an engineer, or we become a good cricket player, or we become some talented musician, and so on. And when we achieve that success and we reflect back, so we see, when we reflect back, many times we observe that actually I have attained this success. However, I would not have been able to attain this success unless and until such and such person wasn't there in my life. This happens to many people, and this can happen in a different way to different people. Uh, for a cricketer, it may be a coach. For a businessman, it could be his father or her father, from whom he would have learned the business. From somebody who could be some another person, just maybe without any relation. Maybe it could be a teacher in the school, maybe a friend in the college, or maybe wife in the family, in the relationship, like that. Now, when that kind of feeling happens, what do we think? How do we feel? We feel a deep sense of gratitude. We feel a deep sense of uh, thankfulness towards that person. So something similar is the mood here in this verse, when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this worship consists of offering the work in the mind, thinking, by this work may Lord be satisfied. And then sometimes when such a person feels satisfied, he may feel thankful in the heart. He may actually say that whatever I am today, I am actually only because of such and such person, only because of my father, only because of my mother, only because of my maybe coach, my teacher, my guru, and so on. That is what the feeling of gratitude is there. And when that same feeling of gratitude, when we have towards the Lord, that is what it is mean as swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Hmm. Srila Prabhupada mentions the similar thing, similar point what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has mentioned in the first bullet, and he has presented it like this. He says, everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by Rishikesh, the master of the senses. Rishikesh is Lord Krishna's another name. The meaning of word Rishikesh is the master of the senses. Because when we engage in a certain work, we engage our senses. And who's the master of the senses? Is Rishikesh. So the similar mood, what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning in the first bullet, uh, Srila Prabhupada in his commentary has mentioned in a slightly different way, that he's saying everyone should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by Rishikesh, and by the result of the work, Sri Krishna or Rishikesh should be worshipped. Then uh, Srila Prabhupada has taken this mood of gratitude and gratefulness towards that supreme person. If you pay attention in this 46th verse, it is still not at the level of bhakti. And why I say so? Because there is no mam mentioned here. Lord Krishna is not saying uh, swakarmana mam abhyarcha. He's saying swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Tam abhyarcha is in the third person. And who is that tam abhyarcha? That tam is who is the source of all beings. Pravrattir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam. And who is all pervading. So that supreme being you should worship. So this particular verse is still not at the level of bhakti. But Srila Prabhupada in his purport has given a devotional purport. He's saying, if one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, then by the grace of the Lord, he becomes fully aware of everything. That is the perfection of life. And then he further continues to give the another aspect of bhakti where the Lord actually helps the living entity. Uh, he's saying the Supreme Lord himself takes charge of delivering such a devotee. So far, if you can relate to it, the idea is that there are material modes of nature. Every living entity is affected by the modes of material nature, and they should do the activity as per their swabhava, as per their nature. But that activity may be possibly be done for some sense gratification, for some uh, materialistic results, for some fruitive results. But ultimately, from slowly from that part, the concept is being developed that okay, ultimately the person should become nishkam, from sakam to nishkam, and that nishkam level is being mentioned here in verse number 46. So many of you would remember the yoga ladder that we have studied in our classes. So in the yoga ladder, we have studied about vikarma at the bottommost level, then karma kanda, then sakam karma, then nishkam karma, then gyan yoga, then dhyan yoga, and then bhakti yoga. And the Lord in the 18th chapter is actually revising all those concepts which he has mentioned in the past. So this is something where we are, the Lord is telling that okay, using your swabhava from sakam karma rise to nishkam karma. And nishkam karma yoga is actually the preliminary stage of bhakti. Huh? So rise to nishkam karma, where whatever activity you do, after doing that activity, feel grateful for the Lord. Feel Do that activity in a nishkam bhav. Say when you feel grateful to the Lord, actually you are passing the credit to the Lord. I have not done this. I am able to do this only because of you. So you are becoming nishkam by that kind of thinking. By that kind of thinking, you are passing the credit to the Lord. And when you are passing the credit to the Lord, your consciousness become nishkam. Your consciousness become selfless. So that is the main thrust of this verse, verse number 46. Let us look at 47 and 48 quickly. So I was giving that explanation already to you just now. So worship the Lord with duties according to one's nature, uh, and then relation with 18.47. Relation with 18.47 is being mentioned in this particular slide, where the Lord is saying uh, a question might be raised. A question might be raised. What if some duties appear problematic? So till 46th verse, the concept given is swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Do the activities according to your nature. Do the activities according to your nature. But if somebody asks this question, what if when you are doing these activities according to your nature and some activities appear problematic? Some activities you don't want to do or you don't like, although they are according to your nature, but you don't like. in general, and I will give you the example what I mean by that. What should you do? So that is something which is answered in 18.47. So 18.47, the Lord says, श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुण परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वभावनियतं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्. So the Lord is giving direction here, and this is something which is a little relevant in case of Arjuna also. And I will explain you how it is relevant in case of Arjuna in the context of Bhagavad Gita, in the context of Mahabharat war. We'll explain you in a short while. But let us see the different lines, what they mean. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha. Vigunaha means imperfectly. Swadharmo means one's own duty. Shreyan means it is better, it is advisable, it is shreyaskar. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha. Paradharmat swanushthitat. Paradharmat means another's duty, another's dharma. Swa anushtitat. Anushtitat means Swa anushtitat means perfectly done. Uh, then to do another's duty, it is better to do one's duty imperfectly. Then swabhava niyatam karma, doing one's own duty according to one's nature, kurvan napnoti kilbisham, are not affected by sinful reaction. So this is what the Lord is trying to say, that even if within your own swabhavik karma, even if your own niyat karma or your prescribed duties, you find some activities which are not pleasing to you, which are not, where you don't feel comfortable doing it, still you do them, because doing one's own duty according to one's nature are not affected by sinful reaction, are not affected by sinful reaction. And I will try to explain you this in a technical way, the technical reason for why these are not affected by sinful reaction, when I will explain you the next slide. But why this is being mentioned here to Arjuna? Because Arjuna was trying to leave his Kshatriya duty, and he was trying to leave away the battlefield, and he was trying to go to the forest, do some sannyas, or do leave those activities, take renunciation, take retirement from active Kshatriya life as an administrator, as a soldier, and so on, which is something which is more befitting to a Brahmana, which is more befitting to a Brahmanical propensity person. So the Lord is saying to Arjuna here that it is not advisable to leave your own duty of fighting and take on to the duty of, for example, a Brahmana. And although it may appear more appealing to you right now, the Brahmana duty appealed to Arjuna. Why? Because Brahmanical duties are peaceful in nature, and Arjuna did not want to kill his own relatives. So he said that I don't want to fight. It is not pleasing to me to kill my own relatives. Although as a Kshatriya, I was duty bound to kill the enemy. But because the enemy was the relatives, he was saying that no, I don't like this activity now. I better do a Brahmanical duty of renouncing all these activities. And that is what I like. So that is what Lord Krishna is saying. Although another's duty might appear pleasing to you, but you stick to do your own duty. Why? Because doing your own duty according to your own nature, you are not affected by any sinful reaction. And why you are not affected by sinful reaction, let us look when we are looking at the next slide. So but before we look at the reason of that particular point, let us look at some of the examples what Srila Prabhupada has given in the purport. uh, these examples are those examples where a person having one particular nature, having one prescribed duties, uh, finds there are some unpleasing duties in the list, and that's these are some examples which I want to share with you. These examples are: for a Kshatriya or administrator, there are so many abominable things. First one, a Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his enemies. Mm. He has to kill people. and killing is not a pleasurable activity. So this is one abominable thing in the list of activities of a Kshatriya. Similarly, and sometimes a Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. So administrators, government people, politicians, sometimes they are forced to lie. Sometimes there are situations where they can't reveal everything because of diplomatic reason, because of the larger interest of the people, and so on. And that is why, for the sake of diplomacy, they have to tell lies. So this is something which is uh, uh, in the activities of Kshatriya. These are those activities which the Kshatriya sometimes may find unpleasant. I will not do, because these are unpleasant, these are not my and then I will rather act like a Brahmana. So the Lord is saying that no, it is not like that. And if you continue to stick your own prescribed duties, even if there are some faults, there are some abominable things, you still continue to do your duty, because such duties or such activities, such actions will not make you sinful. That will not make you sinful. So the Lord is giving some concession. uh, if you continue to do your duty, he is giving you that concession, that yes, some all these activities will have some kind of problematic things, and you should continue to do those problematic things out of duty. And if you do them, don't worry, it will not make you sinful. Then the second example is, in the business field also, sometimes a merchant has to tell so many lies to make a profit. If he does not do so, there can be no profit. Sometimes a merchant says, "Oh, my dear customer, for you I am making no profit." But one should know that without profit, a merchant cannot exist, isn't it? So we see this thing happen every day to us. We go to purchase some garments, we go to purchase some sari, or we go to purchase some grains or whatever, and we are dealing with a business person. The person says, "Sir, for you I am giving you this rate. I'm not offering you a rate to what I rate to general people. Actually, when I'm selling this produce to you, I'm making no profit at all." So you will hear this dialogue from merchants, from business people, many times. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is giving as an example, that these kind of I would say innocent lies, I would say, from the part of the merchant, actually are not supposed to make the merchant sinful in nature, because a merchant has to do business, and unless and until he convinces the customer that this is a good bargain for him, the customer is not going to buy that thing. And if he's not going to buy that thing, if he's going to be really very honest about these things, he cannot do business. So these are some of these things which uh, uh, are I'm sharing with you, or Prabhupada is sharing with you, as example of those duties where sometimes people may have to do those activities which may not find very pleasant, but the Lord is saying that still you continue to do your duty, even if it is unpleasant, if it is not perfect. Then now, yeah, so that point I was mentioning to you, why continue to do these kind of duties, although they may appear sinful, will not cause you sin. Now for that we may have to go to the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we understood that how doing prescribed duties is uh, actually makes us progress towards transcendence, makes us progress towards the divinity. There we discussed in the third chapter the Yajna Chakra, the sacrifice, the cycle of sacrifice. So in the Yajna Chakra, what we discussed that living entities lives on grains. Grains come from rains. Rains are born out of Yajna, and Yajna is born out of uh, or prescribed duties, and prescribed duties are coming from the Vedas, and the Vedas are coming from the Supreme Lord Krishna. So ultimately, from where these prescribed duties are coming? These prescribed duties are coming from the system that Lord Krishna himself makes. So the Lord is saying that if you continue to be in the system, if you continue to remain in the system as per your swabhava, as I have ordained, as I have made it, you will not get any sin. Although there may be at times, at occasions, there may be some activities which may sound unpleasant, which may not sound very palatable to you. You continue to do your duty rather than doing others palatable duty or other pleasant seeking duty more perfectly. So it is not advisable. So this is what the first bullet on this slide is telling us. Then the conclusion is that everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired, and he should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. So that is the ultimate guidance Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport, that follow your nature, do as per your nature, act according to your nature, but ultimately have gratitude towards the Lord, have some sense of gratefulness towards the Lord, and that is going to take you towards Nishkam Karma Yoga, or takes you towards transcendence. Then the final verse of the today's class. सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय सदोषम् अपि न त्यज्येत सर्वारम्भ हि दोषेण धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः. So the same theme is now being furthered by the Lord in this verse, but in this theme the Lord is explaining by giving an analogy. He's saying सहजम कर्म कौन्तेय सदोषम अपि न त्यजेत. You should not leave your sahajam karma, you should not leave your natural work, although there may be some faults engaged in it, or there may be some faults involved in it. And I'll give you an analogy. The analogy is like every fire is covered with some smoke. So fire, the important element of the fire is either heat or illumination. Smoke has nothing to do in either heat or illumination. Smoke is something like a waste product when we lit a fire. So that's what the Lord is saying. Just like a fire is covered with smoke, similarly, there are activities. You should not give up your work born out of your nature, even if such work is covered with some fault. So, with the help of an analogy, the Lord is explaining the same thing to Arjuna in this verse. Let us conclude the class by quickly uh, reflecting upon the two bullet points from this purport by the Lord. So the first bullet is again an example that Lord Srila Prabhupada has given in this purport of an activity which can be unpleasant at times. Although it is a niyat karma, it is a prescribed duty, but the situation might make it unpleasant. And the example is now in the context of a Shudra. He says, even though a man is a Shudra serving a bad master, he has to carry out the order of the master even though it should not be done. Despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties. So he's giving another example where the master is not really good. Uh, so if a now when we are talking about Shudra who's supposed to be serving the other Varnas, it does not mean that the other Varnas exploit the Shudras or take advantage of the position of the Shudra. The other Varnas should be protecting, should be protection giving to the Shudra. He should not consider the Shudra as an activity, as a person who can be exploited, who can be exploited to their own advantage, because this person is not so intelligent, not so gifted by the Lord. But the people should take good care of the Shudra. Now here the example given is, if the Shudra is serving a bad master, then Shudra, because of its prescribed nature, prescribed duty, still will have to serve the master. But the Lord is saying that in that situation, Shudra should not worry that, okay, I'm not doing my prescribed duty well. So the Lord is saying there are already some faults here and there in the prescribed duties, and you should not leave them. You should better continue to do them. Then uh, Prabhupada is writing here, when a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. And that is something which is very similar to the Om Tat Sat concept. So in the Om Tat Sat concept, we also discussed about these three modes of nature. And ultimately, we said that these three modes of nature will be bound with some problems, bound with some difficulties. But if in our mind we understand that we are doing it for the Lord, we are doing it for the betterment of the Lord, for the as an offering to the Lord, then all the defects of that activity are purified. All the defects of that particular occupation are purified. So that is all for the class today. I hope it was useful, although we covered only 8 verses, but these are important verses and giving you a lot of important concepts. So thank you very much for your
Deepak,
kind patience.
hand.
Yeah. All glories to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now we can have any discussions, takeaways, and comments. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Prabhuji, Venkoba here.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, this is regard to the previous slide. What is this? Performing duties to the bad master.
Hmm.
Can I take this? What is relate this slide to the Bhishma serving the bad master as Dhritarashtra? What he
Uh,
did was right. I mean, in my opinion,
but
this
Bhishma
was
was not a Shudra.
no, it's not Shudra, but still, with respect to the meaning of this slide, we have to perform the duties. So, can I
Prabhuji,
relate this to? Yeah,
Prabhuji, the nuances of dharma are not so easy and not so black and white. Although, although it may appear technically what you are saying like a mathematical question, okay, it is mentioned like this here, and we can actually relate to what Bhishma did with the Dhritarashtra and
Dhritarashtra.
Duryodhana.
Yeah,
It is it is not being mentioned here in that context. In that context, it is not being mentioned here that okay, the master was bad, but then you continue to do whatever the bad master is telling. It is something which is like a exceptional situations which may come to your come in your life, but then sometimes you may have to perform those activities, but when you do those activities, actually you will not be bound by sinful reaction. So that is the main uh, context in which it is being mentioned here. In the case of, first of all, the Bhishma was not a Shudra, he was a Kshatriya. So and it was mainly because of the attachment towards the vow he had taken. He was he was not doing he was not actually challenging Dhritarashtra, or he was not challenging uh, I would say Duryodhana in that assembly. So he did retaliated. It was not that he kept quiet, he did retaliated, but ultimately he did not take any action in that meeting. And that is where he was got actually punished by Krishna in the battlefield of Mahabharat. He was actually had to pay for all that he did for keeping silent uh, in that meeting. Yeah. So it
okay,
is not same thing, Prabhu. That's what I'm trying to say.
okay, fine, bro.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Manish Prabhu.
so yeah, you have explained us about these four varnas, and I think typically, as we know, that this typically exists in our religion, Hindu religion, but are typically these four varnas also in other religion?
No,
Because
no.
I also remember you mentioned earlier that these varnas also exist in the Western countries or maybe Far East countries. Then how does this specify for different religions? Like now here we talk about Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra, and Vaishyas, but in other religions, how can we correlate this?
No, no, not say when I mentioned this is existing in the Western countries, what I mean to say is that these
Mhm.
four human types are existing in human society everywhere.
Ah,
Not
correct, correct.
not
Yes.
only Western countries, but everywhere. Even in the organization that you work or you serve,
Mhm.
everywhere these
Mhm.
four, you will find an intellectual class which will make policies, which will make all these things, strategies, policies, which is something like the brain of the organization or brain of the community. Think tanks, correct?
Correct.
You will always
Yeah.
have you will always have a executing say administrative class, people who will be project managers, who will guide how, when to do, how to do, what time to do, how fast to do, like that.
Mhm.
Resource, they will manage resources, they will hire people, they will fire people, like that. So these are Kshatriyas. Then you will
Okay.
have people who are more commercially oriented. They will bring the
Mhm.
commercial angle to the whole thing. They are Vaishyas. and there are other people who will simply support. For example, you will have peons, you will have supporting staff, you will have cleaning staff in an organization, you will have maybe labor staff who are putting uh, big shipments from one place to the another place. They don't need a lot of intelligence there, maybe, and so on. So
Mhm.
these are four human types. They are four human inclinations. The point is,
Yeah, but
In the Vedic
yeah.
system,
Mhm.
they have been identified, and
Yeah,
the society has been advised to be arranged as per this idea. And why? Because it will make the society more stable, it will make the society
Mhm.
more uh, I would say cooperative to each other. There will be a division of labor. Naturally there will be a division of labor, and when people will act according to their own swabhava, their own nature,
Mhm.
they will also feel satisfied, they will also feel happy, like job satisfaction. They will
Yes,
have
yes.
job satisfaction. And when they have job satisfaction, when the society is peaceful, stable, people have job satisfaction, at that platform they can build upon their spiritual consciousness. That's what it
And
is.
they, yeah, and they also, as I understand, they also get this body based on the karmic effects, correct?
Yeah.
The person
So
who
that's what
becomes.
that's what the Lord is saying, that whatever karmic body you are getting,
Mhm.
you engage that tendency towards divinity.
Correct,
uh,
correct. But Prabhu, one question here. Like, if you see, especially in India, and if you compare this with Western countries or
hmm,
whatever
hmm,
other countries, you see all these four varnas are treated as equal in other Western countries, or maybe in some what you can say the good countries. Huh? But
hmm.
in India, like Shudras will never be treated, or will be never be allowed in to step into a Brahmana's house or in a Kshatriya's house, and he is totally kept apart from the society. Correct, there are places where they are not even allowed to in some villages or whatever in this case. So is this because, again, because of their karmic effect, or is this because of our human nature or something?
Yeah. So there are 2 points. First of all, you gave a clean chit to the Western countries that there is no discrimination in the Western countries. So
Yeah, that is.
you should look at Africa. You should even look at USA, where racial discrimination is very much there. And
Mhm.
there are devotees in the call. Maybe Vidyaji is there, and maybe others are there who can explain it to you that black and white. What is this? This is racial discrimination only, isn't it?
Correct, but that doesn't mean that every black is a Shudra, correct?
No, no,
Does
no.
that? No.
As I say,
Uh-huh.
you are you should be thinking these things in terms of human types. And then
Okay.
when you say that in Indian society the Shudras have been exploited, and that is what I have mentioned, that it is the bad example that should not happen. Just now I
Okay.
mentioned that
Okay.
the Shudras are not supposed to be exploited, and the Brahmanas or the intelligent class of people or a more gifted class of people should not feel uh, I would say self righteous, that we are
Mhm.
great.
Correct.
No,
Correct. Correct.
they are given the gifts. They are given the
Mhm.
gifts for the betterment of the society, not for the exploitation of the society. The
Okay.
Brahmanas are supposed to be intellectual in nature. They are not supposed to take any payment from the king. They are not.
Mhm.
If you remember Chanakya was the advisor to this who was this king? Uh, I forgot the name. Chandragupta.
Chandragupta Maurya.
Chandragupta.
Chandragupta. Huh?
Mhm.
So the Chanakya would live in a hut,
Mhm.
and Chandragupta would live in a palace. Chanakya was the advisor to Chandragupta. He would never take any uh, consultation fees from Chandragupta. His job was mainly to do intellectual activities, and if at all anything would come to such Brahmana like this, he would actually at once invest in the welfare of the society. So the Brahmana's job was supposed to guide the king. They were supposed to be renounced. They were supposed to be the Tyagis.
Mhm.
That is Brahmana. Brahmana is not supposed to make wealth, big money, big
Correct.
palaces. No.
Correct.
So
Okay.
when Brahmana will have that renounced spirit, then the king will respect the Brahmana. King will listen to the Brahmana. Brahmana doesn't have any obligation to the king. the king may take him or fire him. No, because he is not taking any salary from the king. So he is acting in the good interest of the king. The king would respect the Brahmana. Brahmana would respect the Supreme Lord. Brahmana would be very much attached towards the Supreme Lord, and the king would respect the Brahmana. And such a king who is respectful of the Brahmana, who is respectful of the Supreme Lord, he will be a dharmic king. So the example of dharmic king is King Parikshit or King Yudhishthir. These are the examples of dharmic kings. So when the dharmic kings are there, they will make that the society is actually dharmic in nature. They are common people. They should act in a way which actually help them raise their spiritual consciousness. So that is supposed to be the Vedic Varnashram system. It is, and then this Vedic Varnashram system start to become degraded when the topmost section of the society which was the Brahmanas. They started thinking self-righteous. They started thinking that they will not uh, they will not act for the welfare of the society, or we should be given privileges because we are Brahmanas and so on, like that. And when they started feeling like that, the kings also lost respect for the Brahmanas. When the king lost respect of the Brahmanas, that relationship, which was a good advice to the king and a surrendered king to the Brahmana, that relationship was lost. And then the society started become degraded. And what you see today in the Indian society, or in the society which is which is mainly based on the caste system,
Correct.
and this caste system has many forms. It has many forms. It is not only restricted only to India, it is everywhere. For example, you are a doctor, I am an engineer. Doctors are like this, engineers are like this. You are a Bangalorean, I am a Jammu Kashmirian. Bangaloreans are all nonsense people. Jammu Kashmirians are all very good people. This is caste system. This is the conception of the bodily conception. This is mode of tamas, ignorance, where people are only seeing at the bodily level. Like you see knowledge in mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So this is knowledge in mode of ignorance, where people only relate at the bodily level, right? So even in the Western countries, you will find this. Even in the Western countries, you will find this. Uh, like the Second World War, Hitler said that we are Aryans, and our duty is to kill non-Aryans. We are actually gifted people, and our duty is to remove these non-gifted people from this world, so that a good race of human beings can be evolved in this world. That was the philosophy of Hitler. That's what he weared, that Nastic sign, or sorry, swastik sign on his armband,
Correct.
like that.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Ishwar uncle.
My submission is that if a sweeper is doing his job dedicated manner and very conscientiously,
Yeah,
I don't think he is anyway inferior to a Brahmana in the eyes of the Lord.
that's what the Lord is saying also.
Yes.
That's what the Lord is
So,
also saying.
We shouldn't be bothering much about this and that. The only thing which I understood from your talk is that do your job as best as you can.
And feel
Whatever-
grateful to the Lord.
Yes.
And feel grateful to the Lord. Yeah. And
that's
do the job according to your nature.
yes.
If the sweeper tries to do the job of a Brahmana, for which he has not been,
then there is a difficulty.
then there is a difficulty. And if the Brahmana is
Yeah.
trying to do a job of a sweeper, then also
Yes.
there is a difficulty.
Yes. Then there is one irritant. I would say
Yeah.
my irritant, maybe personally,
Mhm.
that Lord has given some concession to people of doing things. You can tell lies, you can do black marketing, you can. These things, they are likely to be misused by people, and that is what I am seeing today in a very large number. So that thing, I don't think it is very healthy to tell people that look, thoda thoda kar lo, koi fark nahi padta. This kind of attitude actually gives them a license to do wrong things, because people will try to justify themselves.
Yeah, that is what I tried to explain to Vengobaji short while ago, that this is
Yes.
not to be seen as a directive.
Yes.
What the Lord is saying, that every activity, there will be some activity which will not be pleasant. For example,
Right.
a teacher may have to sometimes slap a student.
Yes.
The teacher may not feel good. If the teacher still continues to give concession to the student may become very naughty, and
Right.
he may have to slap the student, although he may cry afterwards. But in order to control that student, sometime he may have to slap. Now, this is
Right.
something, in that spirit, this example has to be taken. So
Okay.
it is not to be taken as that you can do black marketing. No. Like, for example,
Okay.
whenever you go to a businessman and you ask the
Yes.
rates, he says that this rice is 20 rupees kilo, sir.
Okay.
Why are you giving me 20 rupees kilo? Like, Indians have these tendencies.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
not 18 rupees kilo? Sir, 20 kilos, I am not making any profit. I am not making even single paisa. No. How can it be, sir, that you are not making anything? Sir, I know you from 20 years. For you, I am
Yes.
giving
Yes. They
20
have
kilo.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like that they say. So these are something like, these kind of lies are innocent lies. These lies are
Okay.
not to be taken that, oh, certainly he was making 2 rupees per kilo on that rice, but he's still saying that I'm not making any profit. But he has to say that, because unless he say that, or he say that, okay, it is only 10 rupees kilo to me, I'm selling it 20 rupees kilo. So you may bargain once again. Now, why are you giving me so much profit you are taking? Why don't you give me 15 rupees? So like that,
Right.
the point it is something which is more of a practical thing, where we have to see from a case by case basis. And
Oh,
the and
that's true. It should not be universal. It should
yeah,
not be universal. Yes.
correct, it should not be
Yes.
universalized.
Yes.
And the Lord is trying to encourage Arjuna here, that you have to kill here, which is not a pleasurable activity, but in every
Okay.
varna there will be some non pleasurable activity.
Right.
So
Right.
don't leave your varna just because the activity you are sounding is unpleasurable. Continue to do
Okay.
this. Continue to do that. Yeah.
Right. There is one more observation from your last lecture.
Yes, sir.
In the parts of action,
Mhm.
there is one thing called Devam.
Ah.
So nothing much was talked about that. And what
Devam
I could
actually
understand.
is Parmeshwar.
Yes.
Parmeshwar.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
There are some instances in our personal life. Suppose you are doing a particular job,
Huh?
or say you are driving on a busy road,
Yeah.
and there is a traffic signal.
Mhm.
Sometimes it so happens that you just reach to the traffic signal and the light turns green and you run past everybody.
Yeah.
Whereas a person who was standing there for a minute or minute and a half lags behind. So
Yeah.
how do you explain this kind of things like fate, your kismat, your stars, or some such thing? What are these things in terms of karma?
Yeah.
I would like to know.
These are something situational things. For example, you may go to a government office, apply for a
Yes.
gas cylinder.
Yes.
The officer at that particular day was in a good mood. His
Okay.
wife made a good breakfast for him,
Yeah.
and he was very happy. He probably got a promotion also that day, and he said that,
I
okay, I give you this cylinder, sir. I'm just come and take this cylinder, no problem. Although there was a
Okay.
shortage of cylinder and so on, but the other day it was bad mood. The wife had a fight with the person, and even if there was full supply of cylinder, he will not give you a cylinder. So this is something which you can say, yes, these are karmic things related to people's karma.
Okay.
One day, and that is where we say daivam. Daivam means unless the Lord sanctions it, you won't get it.
Okay.
Now
So
just
these are supernatural things. We don't really know about them. How
yeah,
do and
we
why
don't,
they happen.
unless there is a sanction of the Lord, you don't get it.
Okay. Okay.
You will find the obstruction coming in different ways.
Right.
Obstruction coming in different ways. Cannot explain. Bhagavad Gita also mentions, Lord mentions that the intricacies of karma are very complicated.
Okay.
In
Right.
Mahabharat,
Yes.
when Yudhishthir, who was supposed to be a very learned person,
Right.
after the Mahabharat war, he started feeling very, very dejected. Say, what
Right.
I have done? I have killed so many people. I have been the cause of killing of so many people. And then I will not take this kingdom at all. And then Bhima becomes very angry with him. He said that you actually were agreeing to it. Why are you saying like that? Then they all go to Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev there
Right.
explained to Yudhishthir that the intricacies of karma, even the most intelligent of people cannot understand. So it is Kala, it is Daiva. You should accept the will of the Lord. The Lord wanted you to take this for, so that is fine. That is acceptable. Now you should not become morose. You should not lament. You should
Okay.
accept it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so good discussion. Thank you very much for everyone's attention.
Prabhu, Hare
Yes,
Krishna, Prabhu.
yes, Jivan.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Yes,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
Can I ask you one question?
please, please.
It's actually according to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is considered as an incarnation of Lord
Uh-huh.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Today in Kali Yuga, there is no, only Shudras are there.
Mhm.
And how about the relevance of today's discussion on Varnashrama? Can you please slightly highlight on that?
Yeah, in people who are not taken to any spiritual path, people who have not or not considered or not taken any seriously to devotional service or scriptural rules and regulations, they are actually in the category of Shudra only, because they do not have any concern towards any law, any ritual, any scripture. So that is people in the mode of ignorance. That is Shudra. But devotees, for example, devotees in this class, they are interested in learning Bhagavad Gita. Now we cannot call such people as Shudras. They are interested in spiritual knowledge. They are interested in their spiritual development. They are taking time from their busy schedule to understand what is the intricacies of spiritual life. So they are certainly not in that category. Although generally we say that, okay, in Kali Yuga nobody is interested in spiritual life. Like in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, uh, there is a description about the quality of people in the Kali Yuga. So it mentions about that these are dull, these are lazy, these are like that. There are 4 or 5 qualities of people in Kali Yuga are given. So so that is actually meaning to say that in Kali Yuga, people in general are not interested in spiritual life. And since people are not interested in spiritual life, they are no better than a Shudra. They are no better than a Shudra who is simply in mode of ignorance, simply eating, mating, defending, and sleeping. That's all. That's how that needs to be understood.
I'm sorry, Prabhu, I should not ask that question to you because we are attending with as a devotee only, we are attending, but still, because that I just wanted to just know your this thing.
Yeah. No, that's
I
a
will
genuine
know-
question. That's a genuine question. And Srila Prabhupada have made that remark that in Kali Yuga, generally people are Shudra type. They don't have any interest in spirituality, or rather Shudra actually are better. Shudras are actually better. If you read the chapter that we have read today, Shudra also
Yeah.
have their prescribed duty, and if they do their prescribed duty, like Dr. Ishwar was mentioning, that if a sweeper is
Yeah.
there and if he's doing his duty well and feeling grateful to the Lord, he will also achieve perfection in due course of time. But people in today's age and time have no interest in spirituality. So they are even more degraded than Shudras, I would say. Yeah, they have no
Thank you,
culture,
Prabhu.
they have
Thank you.
no sense of goodness and so on. Yeah, so very difficult
Thank
situation.
you, Prabhu.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
So thanks everyone. Thank you for your time and attention. Really appreciate. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhu.
Thank you.
हरे कृष्णा गुरु जी।
हरे
Thank you,
कृष्णा
Prabhu.
ताऊ, यस हरे कृष्णा।
Thank you,
मैं
Prabhu.
वो जो आपने एग्जाम्पल दिया ना चाणक्य की, उसकी
हाँ जी।
बहुत अच्छी एग्जाम्पल है।
हाँ जी हाँ जी,
मुनि अष्टावकर,
हाँ हाँ
हाँ,
बताइए।
उनके पिता राजपुरोहित थे।
हाँ जी,
वो सब कुछ लेते थे राजा से,
हाँ हाँ
तो ज्ञान नहीं दे सके।
हाँ
मुनि
हाँ
अष्टावकर सब ऐसे करते थे, ज्ञान के लिए करते थे, उन्होंने उनको ज्ञान दिया था।
हाँ जी।